So Ron, what has changed since President Trump came in on January 20th? I mean, Mark just described the process before that these agents were, in many cases, felt like they were a speed bump on the way for people to come into the country. How has that process changed since January 20th of 2025?
No one is being released that comes into the hands of CBP or ICE at the border, or much less in the interior, and they're being removed quickly. So we went from 7,000 encounters at CBP a day during the last year of the Biden administration to less than 300 today. In the last 24 hours, that is like 270 average through the week. Encounters by CBP at the border. Gotaways are way down. No abuse of the parole system. So the men and women of the front line are now in control of the law enforcement assets, not the cartels, which was happening during the entirety of the Biden administration.
All right, guys, it is Tuesday. Brand new newsletter drops today, SeanSpicer.com. Sign up. It is free. I've got a lot to say this week. And the fun thing about the newsletter is I get to put a lot of stuff in there that I can't necessarily get to on the show. So go to SeanSpicer.com, sign up for free. Always love a good VIP member. And it's also, you can gift them too. If you know somebody who loves politics, break it down and you can do that. Most of the stuff, by the way, is free. You're just supporting the show and the VIP membership and getting a little extra. But I digress. Anyway, it is tax day if you're celebrating, or as the left would say, to those who celebrate. But hopefully President Trump, through these new tax bills, is going to get our tax bill lowered. We've got an amazing show today. A lot of discussion about this gentleman, the man from Maryland, who I don't understand why the media keeps calling a guy who's in this country illegally from El Salvador a man from Maryland. He's as much of a Marylander as I am from Alaska. Like he just happened to have been rolled up there. But anyway, this guy, as you know, is now in an El Salvador prison. He was in the country illegally. He had a deportation order. And I've got two top Trump officials on to talk about where we are on the border, including this case. Ron Vitiello, Vitiello is the senior advisor to U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. He is the former chief of the Border Patrol. And then Mark Hall is the deputy U.S. border czar under Tom Homan. These guys are amazing. And we're going to break down where we are on the border, where we are on this case with the Maryland man. Anyway, but President Trump brushing up on his Spanish with Rachel Campos Duffy in an interview. Take a look.
Mr. President, I'd like to teach you how to say, let's make America great again in Spanish. So, vamos a hacer América grande otra vez.
America grande otra vez.
Hey, well, there you go. But that was the Spanish lesson for the day. But the lesson in getting schooled by a reporter, well, that went to Kaitlin Collins of CNN. She was in the Oval Office yesterday during the president's Q&A at the top of the meeting with the El Salvadorian president. She was trying to, I don't even know what make the case for this MS-13 gang member. And in front of the El Salvadorian president, with the president, he got to school her there with having the whole team in front of her. Take a look at what I'm talking about.
Turn the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork that needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
All right. So you heard her answer. Just to be clear about this guy that is the Maryland man that the media, he was in this country illegally. He is a gang member and he had a deportation order. Okay. And the court ruled 9-0 that the U.S. government could facilitate his return if they wanted to. Okay. Well, they're offered a plane. The El Salvadorian president says, no, we're not going to release him. He is a citizen of El Salvador. So again, in the country illegally, had a deportation order, member of a gang. And the Democrats and the media want him to come back. Do you want him back? I'm sort of shocked. I get that the media is playing a game here because you read it and you go, oh, he's a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. He's a criminal in this country illegally with a deportation order to go back to his country of origin, El Salvador. But I think after 4 years of Joe Biden, this is where they are on this kind of stuff. Anyway, like I said, we've got a great show because we're going to break it down. I'm going to ask two experts in this in a second. It is an unbelievable look at where we are as a country and the priority for the border, but so much to break down because we've got so much happening between Harvard and everything else that I'm going to get to later in the week because I want us to focus on this. Andrew Klavan coming up later in the week. Tomorrow, we're going to break down the Senate map, every seat up, the way we did Road to 270 earlier. I'm so excited about this. Senator Cory Gardner is going to join us to go state by state. And again, if you loved Road to 270, you're going to love this. But before we get to that, I tell you this every night when I go to bed, right before half hour, I take my Beam Dream powder. And this is another empty bag of it. This is the cinnamon cocoa. Last night, I actually did take the brownie one. Take a scoop of it. I put it in some water. Last night, I did 34 seconds in the microwave. If you want to know my precise, I'm trying to get it perfect. Half an hour before. And I'm telling you guys, if you've ever had trouble going to sleep or staying to sleep, this is an absolute game changer. I've tried all the pills. I've tried everything. And Dream was made with an absolute powerful blend of all these natural ingredients. It's reishi, magnesium, theanine, apigenin, melatonin, and the flavor is amazing. I'm not kidding when I say it. It's so good, but you will fall asleep. That's the downside. I am so excited. I mean, it's literally made a difference in my life. It's founded in America. It's run by people who share our values, hard work, integrity, and delivering results. It's science-backed. Professionals and athletes all over the world take it, and they've gotten like 17.5 million amazing nights of sleep out of it. It's that good. I'm telling you, if you know somebody who has trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, this is the solution. And Beam is giving everybody who watches and listens to this show the ultimate Patriot discount of 40% off. So you can try any flavor you want. Trust me, I'm telling you, I think they're all fantastic. Go to shopbeam.com/Spicer and use code Spicer for 40% off. Shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code Spicer for 40% off. I'm telling you guys, invest in a great American company and yourself. Start getting better sleep right now. It will put you on an amazing path to wellness. All right. Before that, though, that gets you to sleep. When you're ready to wake up, you know what I'm going to tell you. When you're ready to wake up, try Wire to Fish coffee. Check that bag out. There's another one that I'm crushing because when I have people over, I brew a huge pot of Wire to Fish coffee. I tell you guys, I love the medium roast. I just ordered some more. Because I literally, when I tell you this, I actually order it. I pay for it. I love this stuff. It is such a great coffee. I make a ton usually and put it in iced coffee as well. So after the pot is done, these people, if you go to Wired and it's Two Fish, wired2fishcoffee.com, check out their site. This is an amazing company. Don't just vote on November for good people. Vote for good companies with your wallet. I love Wired to Fish. Great coffee. They love fishing and God and the clean environment. And 25% of their profits go to faith-based organizations and clean water initiatives. Instead of going to Starbucks and giving woke money, giving your money to woke causes, buy it at Wired to Fish. These guys are literally the embodiment of everything that we talk about. Good people running a good company with a good product. I absolutely love it. It comes in a 2 and a 5 pound bag so that it's economically priced if you are a big coffee drinker. So go ahead, grab some Wire to Fish coffee. And by the way, right now, if it's still up there, I know this isn't, but you can get this. I got 2 more of these Wire to Fish Yeti mugs. They're on sale right now. You can get the mug and the coffee. This one says Sean Spicer Show. I'm telling you, I love this stuff. I ordered 3 more to be fair. So you can use discount code WeCare, one word, WeCare. You get 10% off your order right now. Go to Wired, the numeral 2Fish, wired2fishcoffee.com and make 2025 the year that you have some great coffee with a great company. All right, I want to introduce our 2 amazing guests, Ron Vitiello and Mark Hall. Ron is the senior advisor to U.S. Customs Border Patrol within the Department of Homeland Security and the former chief of the Border Patrol and the acting director of ICE. And Mark is the deputy border czar under Tom Homan. He has over 36 years of service in law enforcement. Amazing guy. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting us, Sean.
Good. Well,
Yeah,
I
thanks for
appreciate
having
all.
us.
I appreciate all you guys do to keep our country safe, and obviously a big sea change in the last couple months that I want to get into. Before I start, and I'll start with you, Ron, just the DC and a lot of the liberal media is buzzing because of the case that we've heard a lot about this I think is Abrego Garcia. He's an El Salvadorian resident. He had a deportation order. Can you just walk people through what the facts are? Because I think when I started hearing this, just for context, I was reading Politico and CNN, and they said Maryland man deported. And I thought to myself, wow, like a guy from Maryland just got deported. That doesn't seem right. And then you find out that, like, yeah, maybe he was technically in Maryland, but he's as much of a Maryland man as I am a Boston Red Sox. It didn't make sense. So, Ron, can you just start us, like, what are the facts that you guys are aware of regarding this individual?
Well, baseline, I can tell you he's from El Salvador. He was adjudicated by an immigration court to be removed. So he was set up by ICE and their attorneys to go in front of an immigration judge. He was ordered deported. During those proceedings, he was also recognized as a gang member, and at the time of his arrest was involved with other gang members in a human trafficking event. And he was removed recently from the United States under the Alien Enemies Act, which the president asked DHS to implement, a law from quite a ways back, to be fair, but one that allows the president to determine that when our sovereignty is at stake, if we're being attacked by a foreign power or invaded by a foreign power, then immigration authorities, law enforcement, can arrest and remove people in that condition. He was removed under those conditions. He also, via the reporting, said that he had a withholding order from a judge, which said that he was in danger in going back to El Salvador because of his gang affiliation. So more than one judge said that he was involved in gang activity. He was sent to El Salvador on a flight that was commissioned by our government and was received in El Salvador's CICOT prison. He's still there now. Yesterday, I believe the Supreme Court ruled that he is in fact a deportable alien, and that that the Justice Department and DHS are required to do something as in facilitating his return. But the court did not order a return. It was a 9-0 verdict that said, yeah, he got his due process. He was removed from the country, even though there was a withholding order from El Salvador, not to be deported, but not to be deported to El Salvador. That's where the case is. Both presidents stated emphatically yesterday that they weren't going to let their citizen of El Salvador, Bukele said, they weren't going to let their citizen of El Salvador be returned to the United States. He's a native son of El Salvador. And he's also, by their law and our own, recognized as a terrorist.
So Mark, that's to me a distinguishing factor that the media is not letting us know, is that in the court order they recognize him as a known gang member or admitted gang member. Is that fair?
Yeah, I believe that's fair. And to be honest with you, I'm not as up to speed on this particular case as Ron is, but that's my understanding. Correct.
Okay. So let me just kind of walk back for a second. Both of you guys have extensive decades-long experience in this. But just for people to understand this, it is on its face illegal to come into this country without a visa or through a port of entry. Is that a fair statement?
100%.
That's correct. Yep, 100%. It is a misdemeanor under United States Code 1325 to enter the United States illegally, other than in a port of entry. And it's just like your home. We welcome people into this country. Please just use the front door.
Right. But Mark, to that point, explain to people like what the last 4 years have been like, because my understanding is they walk up and they say, "Hi, I'm here. I'm claiming asylum." And then what would, in other words, are the people in the last 4 years technically here illegally, or did the Biden administration allow them, to your point, to come through maybe not the front door, but a side door and have status of some sort?
Yes, they allowed them to come across the border illegally. When they came across the border illegally, they process them and release them into the country. And so, that becomes a beacon for illegal immigration. If you're going to succeed, speaking to some of the Border Patrol agents at the time, they felt they were nothing more than a speed bump. And they were being pulled off of their border duties. The cartels were controlling the border. They would send, 100, 200, 300 across at once. And there is not a law enforcement agency in the United States, arguably in the world, that can deal with 300 arrests all at once. These individuals have to be searched. They have to make sure that they're medically sound. Any medical attention needs to be given to them. They have to have food and water. Biographical information has to be taken, and then they can be transported. So all of our patrol efforts were shut down to deal with those large groups when they came across. And at that point, then the cartels were the rest of the border was left unprotected, and the cartels were free to bring across what they really wanted, the precious cargo, the dangerous cargo, be it gang members, terrorists, fentanyl, was more or less danced across unimpeded.
Okay. So Ron, what has changed since President Trump came in on January 20th? I mean, Mark just described the process before, that these agents were, in many cases, felt like they were a speed bump on the way for people to come into the country. How has that process changed since January 20th of 2025?
Well, the nonsense is over. What Mark described allowed at least 11 million people, by government records, 11 million people that were encountered by CBP. That does not account for the millions that were probably not seen by law enforcement at the border. And on top of that, about 1.5 million or almost 2 million people in the abused parole system under Joe Biden, in which they encouraged people to sign up for a pre-approval parole in their own country and were flown into the United States, therefore not being seen by anybody in law enforcement, even after they arrived in the United States. So that was 11 plus million, probably closer to 20. And the nonsense is over. The traffic coming to the border is now not being released. They're being removed quickly if they're not being prosecuted. Sometimes both of that is happening. They're being addressed in federal court for their illegal activity or their prior criminal activity. Then they're quickly removed to places all over the country. No one is being released that comes into the hands of CBP or ICE at the border, or much less in the interior, and they're being removed quickly. So we went from 7,000 encounters at CBP a day during the last year of the Biden administration to less than 300 today. In the last 24 hours, that is like 270 average through the week encounters by CBP at the border. Gotaways are way down. No abuse of the parole system. So the men and women of the front line are now in control of the law enforcement assets, not the cartels, which was happening during the entirety of the Biden administration.
So, Mark, what is it that you attribute? I don't want to put, I have my theories, but why do you think those numbers are so low now?
Well, there was a narrative that was pushed in the past that said it required new laws. And with Ron, I will tell you, I am lockstep with him. We didn't need new laws. Our border security laws are pretty stinking good. Do they need to be tweaked? Maybe. But we needed a new president. We needed somebody in there with a backbone that was going to enforce the laws that were on the books. We don't write the laws. We don't create the laws. We're law enforcement officers. And so Congress writes the laws, a president signs them into effect, and then the law enforcement officers go out there and, like Lady Justice has a blindfold. We enforce those laws. We don't pick and choose who gets a pass, who we write the law arrest. We arrest those individuals and set them up for their due process in court, whatever that process may be. And that's the difference. Now we are enforcing those laws. We're not just giving anybody a parole because they just make a fictitious or a fraudulent claim to, some form of asylum or refugee status. And so now we see what happens when you have strong enforcement at the border and you're not going to be released. That beacon is put out to the world that the doors are no longer open for anybody to come into this country and abuse our system. There's going to be a legal process into entering this country. If you don't want to follow the legal process, there are going to be consequences. And this president has delivered those consequences through the men and women of the Border Patrol, CBP, ICE, and the Department of Justice, DOD. It's a whole government approach, and it has worked. And Ron and I have been worked for the Border Patrol for many, many years, decades. And I can tell you, we have never seen numbers this low in my lifetime. 41 years working in immigration enforcement, back starting in 1984. I've never seen numbers like this. I have never seen numbers like this. This is an absolute game changer, and we are doing it lawfully, legally, and it just took a president with a backbone.
You know, Ron, to Mark's point about the front door, if you start telling people that, hey, if you come to my house, I'm not going to let you in, but I don't lock the door and there's a lot of free stuff inside that's yours for the taking, they're going to come. And I felt like over the last 4 years, the vice president at that time, Kamala Harris, would say, don't, when she was asked what the message is. But then it was, but if you do, here's all the stuff we're going to give you. We're going to give you a phone. We're going to give you a hotel room. We're going to give you some spending cash. We're going to bring you into the country. We'll give you a social security number, a work permit, and then we'll give you a court date that's 5 or 6 years down the road that nobody really shows up for. So you kind of get to stay. And I feel like to what Mark was saying, that the signal was, we're not, it's like that street that no one patrols the speed on and everybody flies down because you know you're not going to get a ticket. And that was the difference more than the law. It was, if you're not going to enforce it, people just are going to come in. And now I think there's a fear that if I come, I'm going to get deported.
100%. You have the president, you have Tom Homan, you have Kristi Noem all talking about consequences for those that elect to come in and try to invade at the border. We all have, many of us have, an immigration story in our background. My mom was not born in this country. And so we have a generous legal immigration system. What this president done and the leadership of the department and the border czar's office is lock down the border, provide resources from the Department of Defense, prosecution resources from the Department of Justice, and all the interagency partners working, as Mark said, together to apply consequence. When you make people pay for their bad behavior, you get less bad behavior. And so the pipeline has been shrunk down 97%. That gives more bandwidth to the men and women on the front line to do their jobs effectively, arrest those that are still trying to invade, seize more narcotics, prosecute cases, rescue victims of human trafficking, and on and on and on. That workforce has been multiplied, as Mark said, in ways I've never seen it. The interagency is working in a seamless way in ways I've never seen it. All of this to apply a consequence to those that still break the law, make the border and its communities safer, thereby making the homeland safer.
You know, Mark, you've got over 3 decades of law enforcement experience. You noted that. You're now kind of teamed up with Tom Homan. And as a guy who's worked in these agencies and dealt with immigration, how is the dynamic that now you guys have like this border czar that works among, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth because I really don't know how you work, but how is that dynamic changed from just sort of doing the job at ICE or at CBP or under DHS? Like, how is the dynamic of you and Tom Homan as a border czar run out of the office enhanced or changed the process?
Well, I think it's a brilliant strategy by the president. He understands this is an immigration problem that transcends or connects through many different departments. So we have Health and Human Services, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, all of these different entities. And so you have the different cabinet members that run each of those departments. And so to unify and bridge the gaps and have everybody working as a whole government approach to this invasion of our country and, you know, the American citizens dying on our streets. You have Tom Homan with a vast amount of experience of immigration enforcement, law enforcement, and he bridges that gap. He brings all of those pieces together, working together in harmony as under the president's vision. And we have seen it works. I mean, it's a hell of a strategy that the president came up with, and putting Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi, all of these individuals in these key positions, Pete Hegseth. I mean, this is a government I have not seen in my 4 decades, and it's just a brilliant strategy. Tom Homan is the right guy to kind of orchestrate all the cabinet members and bring them together. It's brilliant.
You know, Ron, I love how you kind of turned the CBP One app on its head. Just explain like what you guys did and how the reaction to it has been so far with people in the country.
Okay, as Mark said, the strategy is working. People know that they're in the pipeline. They're making a U-turn in the isthmus in Panama. They're going back home. And there are also people in the United States who are trying to avoid a knock on the door. So we saw them basically self-deporting, trying to flee into Canada and other locations. We took what was the abusive CBP One app and changed it over with the department's leadership to CBP Home, where people can go into the app, register with the government and say, hey, look, I need to go home. I want to go home. I want to avoid the knock on the door. And thousands of people have raised their hand inside that application. In the coming weeks, we're going to be able to verify that they departed without using other government systems. But in the app itself, it will tell us where they are in the world. So it took the abuse of the parole system under the Biden administration and turned it on its head and turned it into an application that allows people to request help in self-deporting or reporting themselves to the government or telling us they're going to leave and telling us when and how.
So when they leave, though, Ron, is that like a way? I saw Kristi Noem has these ads on, and she says, like, if you leave now, there's a chance. So is that an effort to get them to say, I want to come back maybe legally, so I'm going to show you as an act of good faith that I'll leave right now under my own accord?
Yes, there's consequences if they cross the border illegally. There's also consequences if they stay in the country illegally. And so those have all been lined out. And she is encouraging people with these ads that are not only in the U.S., but are now global, that deters people from getting in the pipeline, coming to the country illegally, but also encourages those here to raise their hand and avoid the knock at the door.
Mark, and Sean, I might just jump in here, and to Ron's point, legally there are legal consequences if somebody is removed by ICE, formally deported, and based upon what the charges are on that deportation, there are legal bars to their re-entry into the United States. So if they self-deport, if they leave before the government has to come and impose those legal consequences on them, then they stand a better chance at making a lawful entry back into the country. But if ICE has to go out and they have to be removed by the order of an immigration judge, then they're going to have a much, much more difficult time in making a reapplication for a lawful admission into the country just because of those illegal bars. So it's in the benefit of the alien to seek to remove themselves if they ever have a hope to come back lawfully.
So let's say that hypothetically, Bob Smith self-deports to, let's just say, Mexico, and then wants to take a family vacation to the United States. He wants to go to Florida. Can they walk on? Could they come up, show a passport, or get on a plane and come to America again, or are they barred for a certain period of time? I guess I'm trying to figure that out. Like, I'm still always amazed at why people just don't overstay a visa versus come in illegally. But if that person's self-deported, could they get on a plane and go on vacation in Montana or something?
Yeah, it would depend upon under what circumstances they remove themselves. There may be a 1-year bar, there may be a 5-year bar, 20-year bar, or there may be none if they remove before proceedings. So yes, they could, but they would have to go in and apply for a visa. And if they were granted that visa, a B2, a visitor for pleasure, like a tourist visa, yeah, there would be no issue, and it would be highly more likely to obtain that visa if they self-removed rather than ICE going out and knocking on their door and putting them in handcuffs and escorting. Then at that point, that door is probably going to be closed. Or say somebody has a girlfriend that's an American citizen. At one point down the road, they want to, engage in a contract of marriage under the love. And then that American citizen wants to petition for them to come in as a spouse of a U.S. citizen. That's an avenue. That's an avenue to get a lawful resident alien status. But if they're removed, there's going to be a bar. There's going to be problems.
Interesting. How have the cartels, Ron, I'll start with you. I mean, it seems to me, I watched a bunch of stories over the last few years. The cartels were making a pretty good business of entrapping people to come up to the United States, making them pay. How has what you guys have been doing the last almost 100 days changed their business? Because I can't imagine they're too happy about it, but I also got to imagine that they just don't stop.
Yeah, no better president for drug cartels than Joe Biden. No worse president than Donald J. Trump. And so, yeah, their business model has been impacted greatly. So the front line, the men and women that are out there that took an oath to protect us, have to be very vigilant in the performance of their duties. We know there are known tactics that we are watching out for today, right? So the traffic in the pipeline has been reduced. And so we've got more control at the border, more equipment, more resources, including 10,000 DOD soldiers standing side by side with the Border Patrol. We're layering on these enforcement consequences so the traffic is muted. But the cartels are not going to go out of business. They didn't go out of business when we legalized in 25 states marijuana in the United States. They still smuggle marijuana. They smuggle this deadly fentanyl that's killing our youth all over the country. And so we're mindful that they are going to change tactics based on what has happened. They're going to lose all the revenue that they were getting for illegal entry and human trafficking because the pipeline is down. So that number of people that are at the border has shrunk dramatically. So we're watching the near coasts, places like Brownsville and San Diego, and the California coast, the Gulf Coast, et cetera, the Caribbean as well. So we're watching those transit routes for illicit narcotics. We're also mindful that tunneling is a problem at the southwest border. So we're watching for those things, doing intelligence collection, and making sure we're talking within the interagency to see if we can spot those tunnels and those trends before they become a problem for us. And then they've already been in the tech space with drones and other equipment designed to thwart Border Patrol enforcement operations at the border. So this is something that we're well aware of, and we're watching to make sure that we're ahead of the next trend, including the violence that they may enact because of the frustration that they're seeing at the southwest border. So we want our people to be safe and vigilant, but we also know that we're going to have to respond to the change in tactics. They get to act, and our team needs to react to it. We want that to be safe and have a secure border. That's what we're mindful of.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, I got to imagine you're screwing with their livelihood. This is real money to them, the trafficking, the drugs. And so it's not just the people coming over. Talk to me about that aspect of it, because when I was out in Arizona, they were talking about it's actually the trafficking and the other aspects, because that's where they're making their money. They're sending people here and to do everything from check cashing to working in restaurants. And so what kind of a hit is this having on their ability to traffic people and women, children, et cetera?
Well, we are adversely impacting the cartels. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And Ron is spot on. They are not going to go quietly into the night, throw up their hands and say, well, President Trump won, we give up. They're going to adapt. They're going to try to overcome and look for different methods. And I will tell you, Tom Homan has me embedded. The vast majority of my time is spent over at CBP headquarters with Ron and the team there. And what an amazing team. Many brought back out of retirement because these are experts in their field. And the CBP, ICE are absolutely crushing it. I am sitting on the northern border with the United States and Canada. I am up here working with the men and women on the front line here to adapt, adjust, and be vigilant. Last week, Ron and I and Rodney Scott met with some sheriffs out of Washington State that were concerned, and the vulnerabilities up along our northern border. So we are adjusting. We are out in front and making sure we adapt and respond to those upcoming threats that we know that will be coming towards us. The cartel's not going to go away.
Ron,
we're not going to make it easy for them, though. That's for damn sure.
Well, good. I know.
Our plan is to put them out of business, and that is the long-term goal. It's going to take a while, but we're going to do it.
Well, good, because I think that they had it easy for 4 years, and anything is. But Ron, I was actually going to get to the northern border. The president enacted these emergency powers to Mexico and Canada because fentanyl was pouring in. And I think for a lot of Americans, maybe naively so, I don't know, we believe that the issue is just the southern border. Broadly speaking, can you just describe how vulnerable is the northern border with Canada when it comes to not just immigration issues, but terrorism and fentanyl, et cetera?
Well, it's the largest uncontrolled border in the world. And what I mean by that is there's not a lot of resources in between the ports of entry across that northern tier. And so if you can get smuggled goods into Canada, or if you can make grow hydroponic marijuana to sell into the United States, you're going to use that border. We know that organized crime has exploited that border. We know during the Biden administration, the policy favored people to be released at the border, including the northern border. So lots of people were flying into Canada and getting across a border that's a little easier operationally to get smuggled across. And so the tariffs started a conversation and get us support from Mexico, like of the likes of which I've never seen. Canada is going to spend, if as we verified, about $1.3 billion this year to comply with the president's wishes to reduce the amount of fentanyl coming from the northern tier into the United States. And we've always had a pretty good law enforcement relationship as it relates to organized crime, drug smuggling, and criminal activity. But they are now back in the business. Mark can tell you, when we started in this career, Canada patrolled the border right alongside of us, mirrored patrols with the Canadians. They kind of got out of that business as things got a little sleepier on the northern border. Now they're back in that business with high-tech gear, cameras, aircraft, night vision, et cetera. And so they're back in the business of making sure that the border is secure in both directions, cooperating with U.S. law enforcement like we have for a while, but in a more enhanced way. Same thing with Mexico. So the challenges on the northern border are the same in regards to organized crime, drug and alien smuggling, human trafficking. The volume is quite a bit lower, but the geography favors the bad guys.
So, Mark, when you're up there, the thing that I again, maybe it's just naive because you think it's Canada and they don't want to hurt us and we can take them out. But you start to realize when the president put these penalties in place, he was really concerned about their lax approach to fentanyl coming in. Since that has happened, what have they done specifically to step it up beyond what they were previously doing?
Well, as Ron mentioned, they're dedicating a lot of resources, money, buying
But is
equipment.
it more? Is it more? I mean, that's what I'm getting at. He said that they were doing it, but
since President Trump has, expressed his concerns and stepped up the game with Canada on the tariffs, wanting them to assist us, they have. Recently here, we've had 3 Ontario Provincial Police constables that are working with our high-intensity drug trafficking task forces. We're in communications with them. And again, the money investment for equipment, manpower, the CBSA, the Canadian Border Agency, it's having strategies drafted up, manpower, the shipwriter program with RCMP and the U.S. Coast Guard is being stepped up. Shipwriters expanding. They're talking about extending that to Border Patrol. So there is a lot of actions in play and being put in gear to, help secure this northern border. So the Canadians are our partners in this. They're invested and they understand.
So for people who are at home in Ohio or pick somewhere else, North Carolina, and they're wondering about how the fentanyl is coming into their country, to this country. Is it being flown into Mexico and Canada and then brought in through it? Like what is the origin of it, and how does it progress to ending up in a community in America? Ron, I'll start with you. Just I think for a lot of people, they may not entirely appreciate where it starts and how it gets here.
Well, here's the viciousness of the cartel, right? There's a demand for opioids and synthetic opioids in the United States, unfortunately. Fentanyl is a different game. In very small amounts, it's deadly. And a lot of people are being poisoned by fentanyl versus, thinking they're taking a recreational drug, and it's not. And it actually has fentanyl in it. And so the cartels in Mexico have learned how to produce this. They buy and smuggle in precursors from China. China was the originator of fentanyl. It was invented, I think, in the 50s. In China, and it was used all over the medical establishment. It migrated into a narcotic that was sold on the streets in the United States and other parts of the world. So precursors are flown and smuggled from China into Mexico. The cartels produce fentanyl from those precursors and truck it and tunnel it. Use drones, any way you can imagine they can get it across the border into the United States. That's what they're doing. They're smuggling it through the ports of entry. They're smuggling it between the ports of entry, above ground, below ground, et cetera. And so it's a big problem across the U.S. The the life expectancy of people in the U.S. is going down. One of the major contributors to that life expectancy drop is because young people are dying in record numbers from being poisoned and taking this deadly substance. And so it's something we need to watch out for. It's something we need to talk about it throughout every city and town in America. You mentioned Ohio. It's one of the places, it's an epicenter for deaths of poisoning by fentanyl. And so it's something that we need to talk to our children about. It's something that we need to be vigilant about inside of the culture. And then we're doing everything we can at CBP, the Coast Guard, the Department of Defense, all the agencies that are involved in securing the homeland are taking it on in the smuggling sense. But there's a lot more to do.
Mark, how do you guys measure success right now? Because the president has said, I'm going to use these emergency powers to go after Canada and Mexico, but I want to see more and I want to see results. How do you, when the president and talks to you and Tom Homan and says, where are we? Have we made progress? How do you explain to him whether we're moving forward or backward?
Well, we're going to see a reduction in the amount of deaths, the overdoses. The seizures at the ports of entry will increase, and other locations out on the waterways, because under the prior administration, like I say, the cartels would send the first wave of illegals in and tie up the assets, the law enforcement assets, and then they could really bring over the fentanyl, the terrorists, the gang members unimpeded. So these are going to be barometers that are going to take a while to get an actual measure on. But to Ron's point, the fentanyl, which the precursors are manufactured in China and brought into Mexico.
What's a precursor, Mark? I'm sorry, but
fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. So an opioid comes from the poppy plant, which is like heroin and opium, and it's used in the medical field for a painkiller. Many of our hospitals use the painkillers. So the fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, and so it uses chemicals to create that chemical makeup that synthesizes or is similar to a natural opioid. And so it's very powerful because it is chemically produced. But that's in lies a danger, because this isn't a pharmaceutical company that's making these drugs by the nanogram. This is somebody, in a warehouse, in a garage, a shed that's mixing this stuff up. So what I take today may get me my high, may get my nod on, but I take tomorrow in the same amount might kill me because of the potency. There are no controls on this. And so what you buy today could be wildly different than what you got yesterday. And so there is one of the dangers in lies with the fentanyl. So,
Ron, the thing that, when you say this, it sounds to me like we've got a route issue, but we've also got an issue in China, right? Whether whoever's making these things, is it Chinese gangs? Is it government aware? But it seems to me that that's the source issue. Is that something that you guys get involved when dealing with, or is that President Trump kind of dealing mano a mano with Xi Jinping saying, knock it off?
Well, I think the whole of government is looking at it. The relationship between the presidents, the chairman, et cetera, is about the tariffs, right? We now know that China's going to face 145% tariff. 20% of that is fully dedicated to them doing more on precursor chemicals that can be turned into fentanyl, being smuggled all over the world. In the case of the United States, that's into Mexico, and the cartels that produce it. And just backing, so part of the pressure campaign from the president to China is, we're gonna tariff you until you start to fix this problem. And we all understand, that the Communist Party could do more on these precursors and stop that smuggling into Mexico if they choose to do it. And so that's part of the leverage that the president is using against them with the tariffs. And just to back up for a minute on the metrics that you talked about, all of the deployments, the prosecutions, the laydown, the cooperation in the interagency is dedicated at reducing traffic at the border. But that's not going to be enough for Tom Homan or Kristi Noem or President Trump. We want full 100% situational awareness on the border. What that means is we want to be able to surveil and see it 24/7, 365. So full situational awareness, know exactly what's happening and when it's happening, when people are crossing the border, and 100% operational control. That's been defined by Congress to prevent every entry that occurs across our U.S. border. And so that's the ultimate metric. That's the goal that the president has put down in front of the interagency, especially DHS and the front line. We want to know exactly what's happening on the border. We want to address and prevent every entry that occurs.
I want to ask you both one last question. When the previous vice president was asked about the border and the president, they would maintain it was secure. So I'm going to just ask you a different question. What is the state of our U.S. border right now, specifically our southern border? Mark, I'll start with you. Just tell me where do you believe the border status stands?
I will tell you this unequivocally, without any hesitation whatsoever. The men and women of CBP have the best operational control of that border than I have seen in my lifetime. It's phenomenal. In my wildest dreams, would not have believed we would be where we are today on controlling that border. Do we have 100% control? No, but we are damn close to it. And my hat's off to the men and women that I used to work alongside at CBP. It is an outstanding job.
That's love it. Ron, how about you? Where does it stand in your mind?
Agree 100%. There's work to be done. Congress has to backstop the policy decisions and the operations that are underway now. They got to fund it into the future and get us to a place where we can sustain situational awareness and operational control. But the traffic is down 90, almost 100%. That means there's 100% more capability out on the line each and every day. So the border is safer than it's ever been. And as Mark said, in my lifetime, and we're going in the right direction. Again, more to be done. Needs to be backstopped and sustained. That means appropriations through Congress, but we are well on our way. And now we have a real border czar instead of a fake border czar, just like we have a real Oval Office setting instead of a fake Oval Office setting. And so we are winning. We're not tired of winning, and the game's not over.
I love that. By the way, I will echo what you both said. We need Congress to do its job and lock these things in legislatively so that we don't have to worry that the next president undoes what you guys are working so hard to get the ship righted. I want to say this in ending. Thank you guys for your decades of service. I know so many people in both ICE and CBP are coming back to serve the government. They do so not because of the money, not because of the fame, because they love this country. They want to keep us safe. And I don't think either of you or your teams get the credit you deserve for your dedication and service to this country. So on behalf of me, to the extent that matters, just thank you guys for what you're doing. And please, I know people say all the time when they see a service member or a cop, hey, thank you for your service. But you guys at the border, man, what you've been through is so incredible over the last several years that I just want to make sure that you appreciate the guys in green in particular. Thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for being here today, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Sean. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. And God bless America.
You bet. All right. What an amazing show. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Thanks for tuning in. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.